So boys and girls, I want to introduce you to our friends again at the Toledo Zoo, Josh and Alex. And we're here today at the end of Earth Week to talk a little bit about endangered animals. We've been doing a lot of talking about how we can help the environment and ecosystems and the animals and reducing plastic, using recycled materials, and help global warming and all of that, those important concepts. But when it comes right down to it, who are we helping? We're helping these beautiful animals. And ourselves and Mother Earth. So let's turn it over to you, Josh, because you have a phenomenal view right now.
All right, yeah, so welcome from the Toledo Zoo. My name is Josh, and I'll be joined with by Alex, and we're here to talk to you about endangered species. So the first thing that I think we really want to explore is what does that mean? What does it mean to be an endangered species? Go ahead and use your chat and tell us what does it mean to be an endangered species?
You have to run. Oh, I have a message.
And if we could get our families to turn their microphones off and just post in the chat, that would be great. I see a couple people still have microphones on. Aaron says it means they're at risk of being extinct.
Yeah, excellent. And I see almost not here anymore. Yeah, that's exactly what it means to be an endangered species. It means that they are endangered of becoming extinct. And extinct means what? What does it mean to be extinct?
Jordan said, no more, Jordan
no
said.
More. Yeah, that means there's no more of that kind of animal in the world. Now, one thing that we should keep in mind is that there are natural events that have caused animals to become extinct. For example, we all know that there were once dinosaurs, and there are no more dinosaurs because dinosaurs are extinct. They either a natural event or natural competition can lead species to being extinct. But in recent human history, especially the last 200 years, more animals and living things are becoming extinct because of people instead of natural events. And when we think of that, there are actually four main causes, or five main causes, that animals become extinct. And we're gonna talk about some of those things that people do that cause animals to become endangered and then eventually extinct. But we're starting with actually a success story here. So our bald eagle, we actually have two bald eagles. This one is one-eyed Jack, because he only has one eye. And then sitting on her nest is Lady Luck. And let's see how close we can get to Lady Luck today. Oh, we can get a pretty good view. So our eagles are rescued animals. They both have injuries. Lady Luck has a broken wing, and one-eyed Jack only has one eye. So these are animals that can't survive in the wild. But overall, eagles are doing well in the wild. So they were an endangered species because of chemicals people were using. Those chemicals got banned, eagles got protected, and eagles have since recovered. So that's a success story, and that is an example of conservation in action. What we hope to show you with some of these other animals that we're seeing, the foundations of their own success stories starting to build. Unfortunately, there's a lot of endangered species out there, and there's a lot of things that need our help. Before we leave our eagle exhibit, is there any questions I can answer about our pair of bald eagles? Go ahead and type them in the chat.
I'm wondering if Lady Luck has any eggs on her nest.
Do you know what? She actually does not have any eggs. Every year they build a nest, and the keepers give them what's called a dummy egg. It's actually just a wooden fake egg, because they go through the nest building behavior. Um, these two are not a breeding pair though, but they still like to build a nest and sit on an egg. So to help them exhibit that behavior and go through the natural cycles, the keepers help facilitate that.
Okay, and we have a couple questions here. Caroline wants to know how much food do they eat every day and what do they eat?
Sure. In the wild, bald eagles are mostly fish eaters. So they actually will catch fish. And this might seem strange, but bald eagles actually can swim with those fish too. So if they catch a fish that's too large, they use their wings like paddles to paddle themselves to the shore. So they can eat quite a bit. They are a bird, so they need to heat their body. So they need to eat in order to keep that energy high. Our eagles are one-eyed Jack. He is, let me see, 28 years old, and Lady Luck is 9 years old. And we're getting a lot of questions. Let me make sure. Do we feed them every day? Yes. They get offered food every day, different types of meat. In the wild, they would build about a 6-foot nest, and they might have a clutch of 3 or 4 eagles at a time. But sometimes that varies, and they do their best when they have a pair. So, and do the eagle wings make a sound when they fly? Yeah, they're not quite like owl wings, so they are very strong feathers and are very hard, but they make some noise when they're flying, which isn't a big deal since they're mostly hunting things that are under the water. All right, I'm going to walk over to our next exhibit. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex to continue our endangered species discussion, and I'll see you when I get to the next animal.
All right, awesome. So real quick, I did see a question, can they see far? Actually, that's one of bald eagles' best traits is their eyesight. They can see very, very far, and that's how they hunt. They can see tiny little things moving on the ground. So some people say it's like the length of a football field they can see. Some people think even maybe further. So yes, they have very good eyesight. And most bald eagles don't really migrate. They kind of take up residence in an area. They might move around a little bit, but mostly they're going to stay in one area. So really quickly, I wanted to share my screen with you so that we could kind of see some different things that Josh was talking about endangered species. So we already know that an endangered species is an animal that's population is decreasing. So the main way that we determine whether or not a species is endangered is whether its population is decreasing over time. And that's something that we want to try and turn around and help them to have an increasing population. And Josh mentioned that there were some different reasons why animals might become endangered. And one way that we can kind of remember the causes of ways that animals become endangered is the acronym HIPPO. And there's some different words that sometimes people will substitute in here, but some of these basic ideas are habitat loss, invasive species, pollution, pet trade, and over-harvesting. So just really quickly, if you do have your microphone on, make sure that we're muting that so everyone can hear okay. So habitat loss is just what it sounds like. When animals lose their habitat, sometimes it's caused by humans coming in and taking that habitat. Invasive species. Does anybody know what an invasive species is? So an invasive species is basically an animal that is not from an area and it comes in and starts to take over. Yeah, an animal not native. Good job. So it starts to take over that area, and that can push out the native species. Pollution is kind of like what we were talking about with the pesticides cause the eggs to become thin. That's a form of pollution. This could be water pollution or air pollution, anything like that. Pet trade, people taking animals in that they shouldn't be using as a pet trade can cause a lot of problems with wild animal populations. And then over harvesting is kind of where that hunting comes in. Anytime we're taking too many animals, whether it's for their fur or maybe for fish, we over harvest them for food. So we have to be really careful when we're doing things like that. And so it looks like Josh is at our next exhibit, so we're going to go ahead and turn it back over to him. The question was if that's a Josh rhino. That's actually a greater one-horned Asian rhino.
All right. I think you know where we are. Go ahead, type in your chat. What animals are we looking at here? The polar bear, yeah. And this polar bear happens to be Bo. Bo is our 2-year-old polar bear, and he's in this exhibit with his mother, Crystal, who's 21. So polar bears are definitely endangered. Thinking back to that HIPPO acronym, can anyone think of why polar bears are endangered? And here comes Crystal swimming underwater. So, yeah, go ahead. Type if you know why they're endangered. Oh, we're seeing global warming or climate change, habitat loss. Yeah, that's great. So yeah, polar bears need the sea ice in order to survive. So they use that sea ice to go out and hunt. They hunt seals from that ice, and seals make up the majority of their diet in the winter because seals have a lot of fat and gives them a lot of energy to be able to survive. In the summer, when the weather is nice, polar bears actually can eat a wide variety of different things, but they're really only effective at, or they're most effective, I should say, at hunting seals through the breathing holes that a seal has in the ice. So as the planet warms and that sea ice doesn't last as long or doesn't form as much, that really is making it challenging on our polar bears to be able to hunt in the wild. And if they can't get enough food to survive or get enough energy, then that definitely threatens their survival, or it threatens their ability to have cubs. I'm going to move to a different window as they're moving through their exhibit. And let's see, we got Bo right here on land, so let's get a really close-up view. Oh, there's some questions. Is there food in those balls? Yeah. You can see Bo right now is actually eating an apple. So these are primarily carnivores, but they will eat some fruits and plants, especially when they're plentiful in the summertime. So although their main diet is meat, they do supplement that. All right, we'll come back to another view of the polar bears, but we want to talk a little bit about how people are helping polar bears, including the Toledo Zoo. So I'm going to turn it back over to Alex.
Yeah, so really quickly, and I know you guys will want to keep looking at the polar bears, we can talk a little bit about, and I know you guys had a session with Polar Bears International this week, which was really, really cool that you got to meet and talk with them. And so we wanted to talk about how we're a partner with Polar Bears International. Does anybody recognize what this item might be? Yeah, and I see that you learned how to tell if a polar bear is healthy. And yeah, we definitely make sure that our polar bears are healthy at the zoo by monitoring their weight and monitoring their diet. And yes, this is a tracking collar. So this is an example of a collar that we would put onto a polar bear. And with Polar Bears International, this is the big battery pack that keeps track of them. And And really quickly, I forgot to pull it up, but let me see if I can find Polar Bears International to show you guys where our polar bear is. And actually, I'll turn it back to Josh for a second while I find that where yes, I can look at the polar bear instead of looking at me typing.
Some of the students,
All right.
I just wanted to read some of the comments. So Carolyn said once a polar bear ate a skidoo seat in a community that they used to live in. So that's cool. So we have some students who have actually seen polar bears in their communities.
All right, our polar bears are swimming all around now, diving deep in their exhibit. So again, that's Mom Crystal. They're moving so fast in this water. I'm gonna try to keep the best view for you. So mother polar bears teach their cubs through play. Polar bears usually have either 1 or 2 cubs, and they encourage that play. And we encourage that play too. So things like jumping and stomping can teach them how to break the ice in order to help hunt seals. Wrestling can give them the strength in order to hunt. And we've got mom and cub doing a little wrestling right now, just playing around, enjoying the water. This is salt water in our exhibit, and we keep it chilled year round, so it's cold salt water. This exhibit also has a freshwater stream as part of it. So, you know, there's always a question when it comes to endangered species and zoos, and what our role is. Well, you can see if you were to visit a zoo and you saw some dynamic animals like these polar bears, that would probably make you want to help protect them in the wild. So although these animals are getting a different life than they would in the wild, they are what we call an ambassador animal. So they are helping to serve as an ambassador to their wild counterparts and encourage that, that bond between people and the natural world. So there's a question, are there sharks in the Arctic Sea? There could be some sharks up there. There are definitely a lot of whales and fish species, but a lot of those aquatic things that stay in the water don't stay there year round, so they do some migration.
Josh, Mackenzie had a question about whether polar bears kill humans.
Well, they're definitely capable of killing a person. They're large enough, they're strong enough, but overall, they are not going to seek out human interaction. They're more interested in hunting seals, but unfortunately, humans have caused some human polar bear interaction. So they are a dangerous animal that you would want to be careful around, but they are not seeking out humans as a prey species. Oh, there's a question. Do we feed the polar bears at the zoo seals? You know, our seal exhibit is right next to them, and they actually have the ability to smell our seals, but they don't eat seals. They get fish for the most part. They'll get some other types of meat periodically. And then for treats, they get things like peanut butter and honey and fruits, all sorts of things. All right, I'm gonna turn it back to Alex to talk a little bit more about the conservation side.
All right, so I do have the map pulled up. That maybe you guys saw the map when you did your Polar Bear International talk, but I can just show you where our polar bears actually are. This is not what I want to share. Okay, we'll just straight share our screen here and get over to the Polar Bears International. So you probably may have seen this kind of map before. So this is where all of the different polar bears are hanging out. And this blue area kind of in the middle is actually a part that sometimes of the year is frozen over, sometimes of the year it's water, but most of the year it's frozen over. And our polar bear is actually this purple one over here. So you can kind of see the path that it's taken, and it has traveled 3,399 kilometers since it was collared, which is pretty crazy. And to our knowledge, it's had one cub. So this is one way that we can learn more about polar bears by seeing how they move and how they interact, and keeping track of them in this way, because it's really important for us to know their habitat in order to better protect them. And I can show you really quick. You may have gotten a pretty good look at them, but this is their fur. Who knows what color their fur actually is? I think I saw one of you put that in the chat.
They do know this.
Yeah, it's more of a clear color. Yeah, so it's actually clear. The reason they look white is because it reflects the light, and so that causes them to look white, but it's clear, which allows them to absorb more sunlight onto their skin, which is actually black underneath. And what do they have underneath their fur to help them to keep warm up in the Arctic? Yeah, blubber, absolutely. And I can show you one more up close thing just to give you a better appreciation for how large they are. This is a polar bear's skull. Very, very big skull. So you can see like we said, they're mainly carnivores. They're going to use those teeth for hunting seals, but they also have this extremely large nasal cavity that allows them to smell seals from very, very far away. So they'll track those seals over miles and miles. So they really don't have a set range that they stay in. They're really kind of moving around from place to place, which goes back to why it's so important that we learn about them and we use those collars to track them, because they're such a unique animal that we really need to know how they're using that habitat. One way that the zoo is helping, other than sponsoring Polar Bears International, is we're actually planting prairies. And does anyone have an idea of why planting plants would help a polar bear? That seems really silly. It's not really for them to eat. It's actually the roots will take in carbon, and then it helps to reduce that global warming that you guys were talking about, or that climate change. So those roots that we plant, even here in Toledo, down here in Ohio, can help. They're so big and they have long roots, they can help to absorb some of the carbon and inadvertently help polar bears. So if you think about planting a garden in your backyard, that could actually help polar bears. All right, looks like Josh has another animal for us to see.
And I just want to say that Jordan has commented that she wants a job like yours.
Well, Jordan, you could get a job like ours. I'll let Alex talk a little bit about her experience. I've been working at zoos for 17 years. This is the third zoo that I've worked at, and it's a great job to be able to talk to people about animals. I always was excited about animals growing up, and this is one of those ideal jobs to be able to be around animals and talking to people. So you can do it too. So we are at our seal exhibit. Our seals are going to keep moving. There's one kind of there in the distance getting a little bit closer to us. There we go. There's our gray seal. Gray seals are an Atlantic seal. And then here's another gray seal. And then we also have harbor seals, and harbor seals are found both in the Atlantic and the Pacific. We wanted to mention that these are actually both endangered species as well, that the zoo is participating in something called a species survival plan on. So a lot of endangered species in the zoo have one of those species survival plans. And that is actually a partnership between multiple zoos through an organization called the Association of Zoos and Aquariums to help protect the future of these species. Again, a number of our animals, there's our little harbor seal. He likes to swim upside down. A number of these animals in the zoo that are endangered are part of those plans, and that plan can involve research, breeding, in the field conservation, all sorts of things. You know what, how many seals are in the world? There are a number of different types of seals. Seals are an animal that it's really hard for scientists to get account of, especially since they spend so much time underground. Not underground, underwater. All right, I'm gonna leave this building that has the seals and the polar bears, and I have one more exhibit that I definitely want to get us to. So I'm going to turn it back to Alex as I move towards that exhibit.
All right, so two things to show you really quick, just since we were talking about seals. This is actually the skull of a seal, which is very, very unusual looking compared to the polar bear that we were just looking at. You notice it's kind of got this big nose up here in the front, helps it to smell as well. And those teeth are even more conical shaped in order to grab fish with. So that's what a seal looks like in its skull. And Josh was just mentioning something called a species survival plan, which I think is really important to kind of go back to and talk about a little bit. So we mentioned that animals have different causes for being endangered, but we don't want to focus on the negative. We want to focus on what zoos and aquariums are doing to help animals. So we mentioned the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and breeding programs are a big part of species survival plans, making sure that we have offspring. So like our baby snow leopard and orangutan, we're creating these populations at zoos that can also help to kind of supplement those wild populations. Do you guys want to play a really quick game with me? I'm going to test this game with you guys because you seem like a really fun group. Okay, so this will help you understand species survival plans a little bit. So you don't have to know anything about genetics to kind of understand how we do breeding programs. So let's say we had a cheetah whose name is Maya, and maybe she's 6 years old. And what species survival plans do is they want to find good matches or mates for these animals. So we have 3 potential mates that we might look at through zoos all around the country. In this case, we're going to pretend it's Johari, Mahali, and Kanu. And all we want to do is we want to find a mate for her that's very different. So you guys can either look at the colors that I put on there or the letters. And which one of these 3 boys do you think is the most different with those letters or colors than Maya? And I think I might have to stop sharing my screen to see your comments. But if you think you know which one of these 3 cheetahs is the most different from Maya, go ahead and type that in the chat. So you're looking at her the letters and the colors. Mahali, yeah, good job, guys. So now you can be zookeepers too. You can work on species survival plans. So what they're looking at is that they want to match up animals that are really different from one another. And that's why sometimes you'll see animals in one zoo end up moving to other zoos in order to be a part of that species survival plan. See, I told you you guys were smart and you can be scientists too. So we'll turn it back over to Josh to see another animal.
All right, we are at our last Arctic exhibit here, and this is our gray wolf exhibit. And our gray wolf boys are definitely excited to be seeing a person near their exhibit. They're used to seeing guests and are definitely putting on a little show of trotting around their exhibit for us. So we have 3 gray wolves in our little pack. They're all brothers. Their names are Loki, Lobo, and Tundra. We'll just watch them just for a second. You can see they're very well suited for the Arctic environment. But as we've been talking, the Arctic environment is in danger, and the gray wolf is in danger itself as well. We'll come back to this in a second. I believe Alex wanted to discuss a little bit about some of the laws and regulations that are helping animals.
Yeah, so we just talked about breeding programs a little bit, but outside of zoos, there's also laws and regulations that help us to protect wolves as well. And while we're talking, I can show you, this is our wolf pelt that I have here. And the Endangered Species Law that came out in the 60s, it really changed things for endangered species. They came out with regulations that you couldn't hunt them. They set up reservations and reserves for endangered species. And the wolf is actually another one of those success stories that we were talking about when we talked about the bald eagle. So these are ones that they got increased protection from the Endangered Species Act, and they put up reserves out in kind of near Yellowstone and Montana and areas. And they're another species that we've actually seen come back from the brink because people cared a lot and made laws to help them. So let's get another view of those wolves, and maybe we can keep talking about it.
Yeah, in addition, it's not just these animals that we've shown you today. There's others that have been able to recover. The American alligator is another success story throughout the world. Things like the Australian saltwater crocodile has been a success. So when people put their minds to it, definitely we can be protecting endangered species. Why don't we do an exercise? You can either think of one of the animals that we talked about today, or just endangered species in general. What's something that you could do from your home or community that might be able to be an impact on endangered species? How could you help endangered species worldwide? Use less plastic. That's a great answer. By using less plastic, we're producing less plastic, and then there's not the danger of plastic getting into our environment. Spread conservation, yeah. It's one of those things that habits are things that are catching. If people see you doing the right thing and talking about the right thing, then people love to join causes, and especially causes that help animals. So, yeah, by spreading conservation, you can help animals. Don't litter. Oh, there are so many ideas you're coming up with that would be a great benefit. And you might sometimes think that the actions that you're taking are minimal, but if you're taking a minimal action, your classmates, your neighbors, your family, if everybody took the same minimal actions to help protect animals, then we would greatly reduce the number of endangered species just through doing those things. All right, we are near the end of our time, so we're happy to take a couple of open-ended questions. They can be about the wolves, the polar bears, the seals, eagles, any of our endangered species here at the zoo, or endangered species in general.
Well, Mackenzie wants to know how many different species of animals are there in the world, but maybe we could break that down a little bit. How many animals are on the endangered species list?
Wow, that's a great question that I don't know the answer to off the top of my head, and maybe Alex can get that answer. One thing that I do want to emphasize with that endangered species list is that there are different categories. So obviously we know that the end result that we don't want is extinct, but animals that have really low numbers can be considered critically endangered. And then there's endangered. There's also threatened, which threatened means that the population is declining but still seems stable. There's also vulnerable. That means the conditions are right that there might be pressure on the population, but they haven't seen a big population decrease. And then when animals have a healthy, stable population, they don't say that they're okay. They don't say that they're good. That classification is actually least concerned. So a least concerned status is for a stable one. That means there's still some concern because some of these things are global problems that may affect any animal. All right, Alex has that answer in the chat. That is a staggering number. So we have 16,000 are endangered species threatened with extinction. Do we have cheetahs? Do you know what? If you'll bear with me a minute, I am happy to walk over to the cheetah exhibit and see if we can see our cheetahs. Do we have time to do that? It would be just another minute or two.
Oh, of course. We have the students love the animals. These are their favorite sessions, Josh.
All right.
Love to see a cheetah.
I'm gonna turn off my camera so you don't see me bouncing down the path a little bit, and I'll reconnect when I'm at the cheetahs.
Well, maybe Alex can talk a little bit about her job.
Sure, yeah. So I also work in the education department, and this will be my second full year working at the Toledo Zoo. My background was in zoology and in education, so to work in this field, it is good to have a little bit of background of both if you're passionate about teaching people like me and Josh are. So yeah, I think both of us really had a passion for animals, but also for talking to people and teaching. If you want to work in a zoo in general, maybe a zookeeper, and along that line, definitely getting a stronger background in science and zoology is a great idea. But for either of those jobs, zookeepers or in the education department, I think your best bet is to try and get experience. So working at different places, even if it's part-time or volunteer work, getting some hands-on experience with animals is my best advice for you. How many species of felines do we have at the zoo? So we have our cheetahs, our tigers. We actually have some house cats as well. We have some cougars, so that's what we're up to 4 there, and our snow leopards is 5. So I think that covers everything.
Alex, can you just do one thing for me? You're a little blurry to me, and we're trying to troubleshoot WebEx. So can you just go up to where it says help at the top of your screen? I just want to do a quick system check.
Okay. What do I click on for help?
Click on help and then go to health checker.
Okay.
And then go to audio and video stat.
Okay.
Can you tell me if you're getting any packet loss?
It says 0%.
Okay, and can you tell me what your send is? Okay, it's fine. So I just wanted to see if you were getting packet loss.
It's now up to like 10%.
The packet loss?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It looks like Josh is at the.
All right. I don't know how well you can see it. Yeah, I guess you can see it okay. Although it just went right around the corner. So we have 3 cheetahs. Our cheetahs are brothers, just like our wolf pack are brothers, and they look or act similar to our house cat might. So much like your house cat might laze around a little bit, our cheetahs spend a lot of time lazing around. But here's one of them walking right now. Cheetahs are actually part of a very interesting conservation program in Africa. Cheetahs have been killed by ranchers because they feel like the cheetah is hunting their livestock, especially things like goats and sheep. So they have used a large dog called an Anatolian shepherd to actually help protect the livestock. And that has worked well. It's a dog that's larger than the cheetah. And that helps scare away the cheetah and protect the livestock without injuring the cheetah. That's a really unique conservation solution. And that's one of the things to keep in mind, especially when we're talking global conservation, is that the best solutions involve engaging the community that is affected by the animals. So in that case, it was people hunting the cheetahs because they were losing their livelihood. So by giving them an alternative, that really helps them out. All right. Are they the fastest animal? They are the fastest land animal. The fastest swimming animal is the marlin, but the fastest animal is actually a falcon in its dive. The peregrine falcon, when it's diving down, can go faster than any of those animals. Oh, how many species of wolves are there? Oh, let me think about that. Maybe Alex has that answer off the top of her head, but I know there's the maned wolf in South America. There's the Mexican wolf. There's a red wolf, the gray wolf. All right, and looks like our cheetahs have gone mostly out of view now. Well, I'm glad we were able to add this little bonus to the Arctic session by seeing some cheetahs. Are they going to run? Well, there was a little thought of a run right there, but ooh, they saw a bird, and the brothers are getting up to join in. All right, Alex, did you have anything that you'd like to add at the conclusion of this program?
I think I've showed everything, so definitely thank you guys for all of your great questions and for putting me to work on Google a little bit there.
And I just want to thank Alex and Josh. This was a great way to be our second last session for Earth Week, and just keeping all of us focused on why we are doing those principles: reduce, reuse, recycle, repurpose, reimagine, so that we can be helping the planet and the animals. So thank you so much, and what a treat to see the polar bears in such action today. And we were just saying that we would love to do this session again, maybe in June, just before we go. And Jalen says, thanks for showing us this. Jordan doesn't want to leave. Well, Jordan, you might want to come back and draw a wolf with Josh a little bit later, maybe reflect on something that you've seen here today. Charlotte says she's so happy that they finally got to see the polar bears. Rael says thank you. And Sigrid said thank you for making aware of recycling and how it helps the animals. So thank you so much, Josh and Alex.
It was wonderful.
This was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our pleasure. We love connecting with you, and we'll see you next time.
We will see you next time. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks, Caroline.
Right, bye.
Bye.